In the Voice of Russia World Service, welcome to another edition of the Christian Message from Moscow. We continue to acquaint you with a book by Orthodox clergyman Mikhail Ovchinnikov. Let me remind you that after being in a serious car accident, he experienced multiple clinical deaths, in the course of which he had very significant encounters in the other world. He described all this in his book, which he entitled Between Life and Death. At God's will, in defiance of the unfavorable medical prognosis, Father Mikhail survived, and today continues to serve at one of the monasteries of the Crimea. In the previous edition, we told you about Father Mikhail's encounter in the other world with two deceased who were particularly dear to him, his spiritual father and his mother. Today, we invite you to listen to the continuation of the narrative.
In translation from Greek, the word penitence signifies a change in one's conscience, its return to the road of true faith. In other words, penitence is an exploit of pious life that seeks the Lord's forgiveness for past sins. Or, as the Holy St. John the Climacus says, penitence is a return of the christening, a purging of one's conscience. To this we can add the phrase by Isaac Sirin: penitence is a ship, and fear is its steersman, while love is a heavenly wharf. When we reach love, we shall reach God, and our road will be done, for we have come to the isle of the other world, where there is the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. It is penitence, this wondrous and pure phenomenon, that we so often lack. At a moment of balancing on the brink of life and death, I observed a most impressive scene. My soul, rising above the earth, suddenly saw a large group of people down below, who were assiduously, even rapturously, going through piles of ugly-looking papers, documents, folders, and such. After reading their way through them, they would either go glum or become elated, joyously discussing what they'd read. Rising ever higher in some remarkable spiral, suddenly my attention was focused on the vast expanses of land, where thousands, millions of people were preoccupied with this useless, thankless task. In reply to my perplexed query, I received the solicitous answer coming from somewhere amongst the glorious shimmering light. It's all worldly vanities and bustle. They are under the delusion that they are preoccupied with important tasks. In the huge, dingy grey mass of milling people that I could see, there were certain people that stood out. Around their chest, head, and arms, there would, on occasions, light up that wonderfully beautiful glow that first struck me in the other world. I could see that for this they were exerting maximum effort. Just imagine, souls of deceased people are moving away from the earth. A majority are dim-colored, their contours vague and eroded, while a very small percentage of these souls are glowing with an unfading, unworldly light, crossing vast expanses in this shimmering wake. Look closely, an unseen voice was telling me. People rummaging about in terrifying dust of earthly sins have smeared their souls with a coating of grime. They are fearful to look upon. While sometimes, in an effort to move away from this dirt, people accept true penitence. This step breaks through the coating of grime, invisible to the mortal eye, and the person begins to rejoice and glow from within. The radiance emanating from these souls is what the Lord Almighty summons us all to. It is love. Love for God and one's neighbor. I immediately felt such relief, such ease. After all, we are all filled with this love from the moment of spiritual birth, our christening. Look closely into the eyes of an infant. What pure childish love there is in his soul, while we, adults, seemingly sensible people, in our earthly vanities and bustle, in unbelievable worldly distemper, how can we feel this love? At this point, recall the words of St. John the Climacus, who insisted that penitence is a return to one's christening. This is where the simplicity and at the same time mystery lies, in tearful penitence from the bottom of one's heart in all of one's transgressions, evil deeds and crimes. Man acquires epiphanous love of the Lord and starts to light up from within. May God give us an opportunity to sense this light and learn to discover it for our incredible soul, of which we truly know so little. Recollections of the repeated return of the soul to the bruised and battered body are far from pleasant. The soul remembers to the minute detail the condition of the body it was inside a while ago. It perfectly recalls the discomfort of the body, which is in a dire condition. However, humbly, without a grumble, I move back to rejoin my body. First of all, you are struck by the awful darkness, the gloom you encounter in the place where you parted with your body. May the medics forgive me, everything there is well lit up and in order. Yet, after the glorious radiance of the heavens, the contrast down on earth is too great, no matter how hard they might try to keep things in cleanliness and order. I saw a most anesthetic table, where a shapeless, deformed body, my own body, was lying listlessly. This body reminded me of a warehouse of important bits and parts. Moreover, all these fragments were unconnected, and it didn't function in uniform rhythm. When I later told the doctor how I had perceived my body, he laughed a bit, but then gravely added, "That's quite evident. But in a while we shall fix all that, and your body parts will gradually switch into the regular routine." It's a pity that the doctor didn't mention God, for without him we certainly would have never fixed or mended anything. What followed was mundane work aimed at reanimating the body, but I really don't want to recall these details, and I'm sure the readers have no need for them. Many people worried on my behalf and came to visit me. Everything is fine, I would say with a smile, answering all their questions. At that time, very difficult time for me, I realized it was easier to live with a smile, rather easier to go on living. Today, when over 4 years have passed since the wonderful heavenly joy of beholding the light of love, a great joy granted to me in my unworthiness, I have come across amazing lines in works by Archbishop of San Francisco, St. John Szechowski. Working in my Crimean cell, I opened his book at the place where he reflects on the 7 fervencies of the Spirit. Man's distress lies in that he is always in a hurry, but a futile, fruitless hurry. The devil is restless in his scorching fury, knowing how little time is left before the end of the world. Poor man, locked in the fetters of small, trivial, pointless cares, which one has to complete as soon as possible, only to embark on a succession of just as trivial other concerns. So, rush to do good. Quickness of penitence. This is the first fervency we should bring to God. A promptness to forgive one's sinning brother. A promptness in giving to one's neighbor all that might help them in their grief. An ability to promptly serve others in at least minor deeds. And an ability to pray for each and everyone. An ability to encounter every manifestation of evil with good, every darkness with the light of Christ, every lie with truth. And the 7th fervency of faith, love, and our hope, an ability to instantaneously ascend one's heart and all of one's nature to God, accepting His will, praising and glorifying Him for all. Is there a better and more concise way of describing the possibility of the emergence of these glowing, blessed souls ascending towards the Lord's embrace, which I, a feeble sinner, was granted to see? How grateful I am to the Lord for such words finding their way to the saintly Father John, for I would have never found the means of conveying thus precisely and convincingly what I had observed.
You were listening to excerpts from the book by Orthodox clergyman Father Mikhail Ovchinnikov, who after a terrible car accident experienced multiple clinical deaths. In his book he described his impressions of the other world and his portentous encounters there with dearly beloved deceased people. At the end of his book, Father Mikhail offers all those willing to write to him at the monastery of the Holy Paraskeva in the Crimea. You will find the exact address on our website, www.vor.ru, The Christian Message from Moscow. And there we end another edition of The Christian Message from Moscow. The program was directed by Vladimir Dyomin, text and music editor Tatiana Shvitsova, and your host Svetlana Yakimenko.
And Pavel Novichkov. All the very best to you. May God save you from all evil, visible and invisible.
We wish you well and leave you with Russian Orthodox music.